Welcome to Books, Dreams, and Financial Things, where we talk about marriage, blending our family, finances, and our dreams. We hope while sharing our journey, you can relate and learn with us and from us.
How are you guys doing today? Welcome back to another episode of Books, Dreams, and Financial Things, where me and my wife, we talk about situations that are going on within our life, personal stuff that we may see with regards to everything that's going on, as well as topics and so forth we may see on social media.
Yep. Today, we're going to talk about a little bit of a blended family topic, I would say. He came across, you want to read what you came across?
Yeah, so I came across a Facebook post, and I guess I'll read it. I came across this post, and this is what it says, and it's speaking from a woman's perspective. Our lady is the one who actually said this. It says, "My husband's baby mom threw a birthday party for their 10-year-old daughter yesterday. The baby mom told my husband that I was not invited, so my husband did not go. Now, my husband's family, mostly unmarried women, she has in quotations, are bashing him for his decision to stand with me, and they are accusing him of being a bad father. His own mother said that I should have been understanding and not become upset if he had gone to the party without me. The baby mom and I have no blood bud. We have never been disrespectful to one another, have not had an argument or any dispute, but she told my husband that I was not welcome to the party because of my attitude. By the way, his daughter loves me, and I am known for being very kind and direct. Is my husband right for standing with me, or should he have left me behind to attend his daughter's party to satisfy the family he came from?" So, basically, that's what was stated in the whole post directly. When you hear that, are basically from what you heard, can you give just a brief description of what you heard? What did you hear in that situation?
Well, what I heard obviously was there was a husband and wife. The husband has a daughter. There was a birthday party. The little girl's mom didn't want the wife to come. Mm-hmm. And so the husband was like, well, then I'm not going.
Right.
And I have a lot of different feelings regarding this. Like, I feel like I'm all over the place. I can understand both sides, all sides, like all three sides. I would like to say first, I think that a lot of times this situation happens when the mother of the child still wants to hold on to the original family, which is no longer, unfortunately.
Right.
I think that's the difference. I think that's what people need to understand. When you separate and you remarry, although, yeah, you were a family at one time with that child and mom and dad, that's no longer your
dynamic
nuclear family. Mm-hmm. You have, now your new family is whoever you're married to, unfortunately. Yeah, you have a child together and you guys are co-parents. That's, to me, a little bit different than a family. It's like your extended family, sure. And in a perfect world, if everyone was mature, then you can all be together. I saw a post soon after you saw this where somebody I follow on Instagram, her daughter was like, oh, this year I'm going to have my birthday party at Dad's house. And she said originally she was feeling some type of way, like, wow, because she's always like had the parties at her house, but the daughter wanted to be at her dad's house. So she was like, I had to put my ego aside because at the end of the day, it's about what she wants.
Right.
She was like, but what was really cool is his girlfriend reached out and said, hey, do you want to help me with the party? And so she was able to do the things that she did. Like, she's very crafty, so she was able to make the little party favors and whatnot. And then she was able to go to the party with her husband and their little child, and the daughter was able to see her whole entire family together.
Okay.
So that's the thing. It's like that's still the child's family, but it's not like your family, if that makes sense.
Okay. So ultimately, basically, we have two different scenarios, right? Obviously, the scenario where I watched it, where the daughter's biological mom said she was uncomfortable with the wife coming to the baby mom situation. Now, in your circumstance is what I would believe everyone hopes would transpire when you have a blended family, is where everyone was just inclusive. So they all worked it out and they all made it there. So there are two sides to this situation, this scenario. So in that scenario, it makes everything easy. Everyone gets along. Everything's easy peasy. Now in this situation, obviously you have a dynamic of where it's like, okay, your wife can't come because she's not the biological mother of the daughter. And because of that, is it right that the husband decided not to go to his daughter's thing?
Well, I was telling that to get to this point. I think that the reason why that situation happened is because the child's mom is still feeling some type of way about the father, and she only wants him because she wants to hold on to that family dynamic. If there were no feelings, if there were no, if she wasn't trying to hold on to him in that family dynamic, then she would have no problem with his wife coming. Because it's his wife. It's not his girlfriend. It's his wife. Especially if there was no argument, whatever, you're still trying to hold on to that family that no longer exists. So now the child has to suffer because if the child has no problems with her, you're creating these problems now. That's what that did. That now is creating this dynamic of everything being separate and now the child being stuck in the middle and having to feel like they have to choose or whatever the case. Now, I would say I would have been like, just go to the party. If we would have been at that stage where it's like, we've never had no arguments. Like, I don't understand the problem, but it's not the little girl's fault. Just go. But we would have had to now figure it out after the fact. Like, because that's not going to continue to, I don't think it should continue to happen. But if that's like the first time, it's like, well, hey, just go to the party and then, you know, we can have a conversation about it later. But I wouldn't want the little girl to suffer and not have her dad there. Because now she's going to feel some type of way about the dad and now feel some type of way about the wife.
Okay. So in your case, in that scenario, depending on the circumstance, you would have said, okay, fine. You know, obviously, we don't have much context of how long the situation was or whatnot, but if it was the first birthday and that transpired, you being the type of mother you are, you would have said, okay, you know what, go ahead and go. So what if my thought process was, well, no, you're my wife. If you can't come, then I'm not going. What would you have thought at that time?
I would just say, I get what you're saying, but it's still not her little girl's fault. So just go, like I said, and then we'll figure it out because obviously we're not going to continue to do that because you've gone to Ania's birthday party when they were in New York or somewhere. I didn't go. Remember?
New York? You came to New York with me.
It wasn't the New York. Wherever it was. I remember because she wore the outfit that I gave her for her birthday. I wasn't there. I was at Chuck E. Cheese or something.
Oh, I think that's when I flew out there on my own to Ohio.
Oh, then it was in Ohio. Now, it wasn't because they said I couldn't come. But, I mean, that has been said too. But he didn't go. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. So I think that's where it stems from. I just think that women, when you have a child, you act out of emotions instead of thinking about what's best for your child. Like if your child has no problems with the woman, and sometimes they don't. The problems come because the mom has problems with her, you know? So it's like, why? To me, that's weird. Why would you want your child to be stressed out or like feel like they have to be put in the middle? I'm going to try to ease that. I'm going to do my best to, even if I'm feeling some type of way, I'm going to put that aside so my child can have the best birthday.
And so, yeah, and a lot of times they don't really understand, so it's not fair for them. And they want to see everybody there, ultimately, I would say, as time progresses. But for those of you who are watching this, either on YouTube or if we put I'll probably put a clip together with regards to this. I want mothers and fathers to respond. How would you have responded if you were dating someone and they had a kid and obviously, like the story states, they stated you couldn't come as a mother, and then the father decided not to come because he wanted to stay. Was he right? Was he wrong? Was it indifference? What's your opinions? We're just curious to know what everyone's opinion is with regards to that. Okay, so fast forward a little bit. So when we look at this situation, we look at this scenario in a perfect situation, you know, to sort of kind of tie it to us a little bit, but not to get too personal with regards to what's going on with us. In the beginning, when as a stepmother of a scenario with regards to the situation, what's the thought process? Because I remember when we've had our issues and so forth, but I remember in the beginning, you had a beacon of light and what you thought was going to transpire within the situation and the circumstance. Obviously it didn't, but what was your mindset at that time, Spence?
So I think I live in, I guess, La La Land because just a little background, when I was growing up, I had half sisters, and I would always be at their house. I would see their mom. Now, as I grew up, I realized I never saw my mom and their mom together, but I saw their siblings come to our house. I went to their house. So to me, that was very normal. But obviously, there were some issues where they were never together. But that's neither here nor there. Right. So in my head, I'm thinking, oh, this is perfect. Like, the kid's mom and we would be friends. I thought friends, not even friendly. I'm thinking we're going to be friends. Not to the point where it's like, girl, let me tell you what Jermaine did. No, because that's weird. But where we would be like, hey, how you doing? Like, oh, I'm going to take the kids. Do you want to come? Or, you know, we would be hanging out when we would visit or she would visit. We would all be hanging out together, especially if she had her husband.
Right.
I'm thinking we're all going to Disneyland trips together. Like, I would take their child. They would take our children. It would just be like a whole big old family is what I was thinking. I would be able to, call her with advice when your kids were with us, or I would be able to FaceTime them, no problem. I just thought it was going to be just very friendly, drama-free.
Right.
I really did. I really was thinking that because, like I said, when we got together, I mean, she was already married, essentially. Right. So I'm thinking there was going to be no problems. Like, she has moved on. He's moving on. Everyone's going to be fine. And so, yeah, that's what I was hoping and I thought was going to happen.
Right. So I just to sort of kind of move past that. So that's the reality. In my mind, at the time, in the beginning, there was probably a lot of stuff that I should have done in the beginning, but, sort of kind of new to it. I didn't know. And the way that I was raised, you just sort of kind of, go with the flow of how things happen and so forth. And, if people don't get along, they just don't get along. But one of the things that I'm hearing you say, which is so key, is the mere fact that for the kids' sake, as adults, you guys got to all be able to at least appear to be getting along for the kids' sake.
Not even appear. It should be no reason why. The only time it won't be like, let's say, the parents had a really hard, nasty divorce. Like, I see that in families where they don't speak.
Right.
It's either going to be like one way or the other. Either you're like not speaking, or everyone gets along. That's how I thought. I didn't know it was going to be like side stuff. Right. I didn't know it was going to be like that. I thought we were all just going to be getting along, or we were just all not. Like, right. That's just all I've seen. Everyone does, or everyone doesn't. So I thought that it was going to be definitely different.
Right. Okay. And so so then ties in that. So obviously with you, we've done that before, and your mind state as the stepmother, you're like, okay, well, for the kid's sake, daddy should be there and do that. But another thing that I remember you said, so if no one's getting along and things aren't happening with regards to that, your thought process, I remember we talked about this earlier in the week, but you said to do separate birthday parties.
Right. If it's like, well, I don't want this person coming, then unfortunately it's just everything's gonna have to be separate. Mm-hmm. And you guys have your birthday party, and then we'll have our birthday party.
Right.
But it doesn't sound like that's the case. Like, she obviously gets along with the dad.
Right.
Now, another thing I would have to address, if she's saying like, oh, her attitude, that needs to be addressed as well. Right. Because I feel like as a stepmom, like, you don't need to be coming with no attitude either. Right. Because that's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, I'm just the type of person, I don't like conflict and anything, so I'm not going to come to you, especially at a child's birthday party, right, with any type of attitude or drama. That's right. Like, because there has to, you do need to know your place.
Right.
But I think that you should still be able to be included.
Right.
And if that's the case, then we have to address it.
Because one of the things that I do admire that I've seen was one of your friends, and I won't mention her name because she probably doesn't want to be known, but I'm pretty sure you know who I'm talking about now, and how I remember when I met you and going to their family functions and stuff that happened. If you didn't tell me who was the stepmom and the mom and the stepdad and the dad, I wouldn't have never even known with regards to it. I would have just guessed, it was just one big blended family. And ideally, right, that's what you would say.
But I mean, I would say I think that's able to be like that is because everybody has their feelings and their emotions out of it. Mm-hmm. And they've had boundaries that they set in place, and right, they've never crossed those boundaries. Everyone kind of plays their roles, and that's why it's able to work. I think that's the only way it's able to work. When you have to completely be over that person, the other parent, mm-hmm, and you have to be okay with moving, the fact that everyone's moved on, mm-hmm, and you can never go back to that. You have to this is what it is. Now it's about these children.
Okay.
And it has to stay about the children. If it gets all weird,
mucky, right,
then I feel like that's when the problems happen.
Okay. Okay. So, ideally in the beginning, so what would you recommend? I think we sort of kind of talked about this in the blended family, like in the beginning. You're more of the expert with regards to this, even though it's something that we're both going through. Unfortunately, we had to learn the hard way. But ideally, if you're a stepmom or an actual mother of a kid in that situation, you know, a blended family thing comes aboard, regardless of whether, you know, the other family member got married or not, what would you recommend is the best way to go about that whole situation? Because obviously, you know, you're going to have holidays that come up, and you're either going to be splitting those holidays or whatever the circumstance is. And then you have birthdays, obviously, every year. So what would you recommend some two families in the beginning of this to do?
Well, it's going to all depend on how everyone went their separate ways.
Right.
Like I said, I've seen both ways, and I've seen how it affects the children. And honestly, from what I've seen, rather everyone's together and does things together, or rather everyone does things separate, it can be fine. It just has to kind of like stay that way, right? It has to just stay like, okay, we're not cool. I mean, you don't have to be talking about the other parent. It's just like, oh, you just tell them like we just do things separate. You're gonna go to your birthday party with your mom, and then you're gonna come here and we're gonna have a birthday party. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily fair for the kids, but unfortunately, a lot of times when people separate, it's because it's not a good situation. Otherwise, they would have stayed together, you know? So if you have to do that, you have to do that. But you should always still make it about the children. Should never be bad-mouthing the other or being like, oh, or I could see people being like, oh, that's all you did for your birthday? Like, it shouldn't be that. It's just they did what they did, now we do what we do. Or in the best case scenario, you guys all put your differences aside and you come together. You know, like I said in that story that I shared, you know, then she was able to still be included in her daughter's birthday. And she said that was just really, she thought it was really big of the girlfriend to even ask. And her daughter just loved, I could just imagine like the joy that her daughter had to see everyone that she loved be in the same place. Like, it doesn't get any better than that for kids, because it's not their fault that their parents aren't together. It's not their fault that they have these separate families. So you should do whatever you can to make sure that they know that they're still very much loved by everybody.
Okay, so in closing, I'll do a quick recap with regards to everything. So, situation happens, best case scenario, everyone does everything together and everything happens. But the key thing is what transpires between the divorcing parents with regards to that mutual kid, right? So if everything is done and they've moved on and you're both building and so forth, then the best case scenario, the scenario that she stated, should happen. But in a worst case scenario, if you have to do two separate birthdays and so forth with regards to that, then that's just what has to transpire and happen. But on the flip side, as the parent or the step parent, it's very important. I mean, there's nothing wrong with asking how the party was, right? Because you're missing it as a parent or the step parent. But it's very key to not down or try and downplay or be competing with regards to the situation.
It's like, oh, you did that, oh, I got to do that.
Right.
And it shouldn't be,
Right. It shouldn't be a competing thing. But at the end of the day, you know, people are going to be who they're going to be, and that's what it is. I decided to talk about this topic because obviously we have a blended family. There are a lot of blended families out there, or families on their way to become blended families. And so it's just a heads up with regards to some of that stuff and to look out for. And hopefully everyone has the better situation with regards to it. But it doesn't always happen. And if it doesn't, it's okay. There's another way to actually handle it and take care of it. So thank you guys for tuning in today. And like I stated before, I want to hear some of you guys' thought process with regards to this. Who was right? Who was wrong? There are no right or wrong answers. It's just how you feel with regards to the circumstance and the situation, as well as your perspective. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys later.
Bye-bye.
Have a great one.